Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today's spring statement will showcase a government going further and faster on the economy, green-lighting the Lower Thames crossing, investing £2 million for 18,000 affordable homes for working families, 60,000 young people being trained the next generation of construction workers, and fixing millions of potholes. We're undoing a decade of stagnation, delivering jobs and opportunities for working people and securing Britain's future.
The political landscape in the United Kingdom has been rocked by a monumental ruling that has put Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, under intense scrutiny. The Chief Justice, in a landmark decision, delivered a verdict that could signal the end of Starmer's tenure as Prime Minister, igniting a firestorm of controversy and public outcry. What was once an issue confined to behind-the-scenes political manoeuvring has now exploded into a full-blown crisis, threatening to unravel the very foundation of Starmer's leadership. The ruling has exposed a series of scandals that go far beyond simple political mismanagement, raising serious concerns about corruption at the highest levels of government. The Chief Justice's verdict has sent shockwaves through the political establishment, as it is no longer just about policy missteps or administrative failures. It has become a matter of trust and integrity within the government. The Labour Party under Starmer's leadership now finds itself at the heart of a corruption scandal that involves billions of pounds in taxpayer money. The public's reaction has been swift and unforgiving, with many seeing this ruling as a final blow to Starmer's credibility. What started as whispers of financial mismanagement has now been exposed as something much more damaging. The ruling does not just question the competence of Starmer and his government, but directly implicates him in a systemic failure that has undermined the public's trust. The Labour leader, once seen as a beacon of hope for the party's return to power, is now facing calls for his resignation from all corners. What makes this situation even more critical is that the Chief Justice's decision is not just a legal rebuke, it is a political earthquake that has the potential to reshape the UK's leadership. Starmer's allies within the Labour Party are scrambling to defend him, but the damage may already be done. With protests erupting across the country and growing demands for accountability, the public's patience with the Labour Party is quickly running out. The ruling has not only put Starmer's political future in jeopardy, but also cast a long shadow over the Labour Party's ability to regain the trust of the electorate. This is no longer just a question of leadership. It is about whether the party can survive a scandal of this magnitude. As the days go by, it becomes more and more evident that Starmer's position as Prime Minister is becoming increasingly untenable. The political war is only just beginning, and it is unclear who will emerge victorious from this legal and political storm. The Chief Justice's ruling has set the stage for a dramatic shift in British politics, one that will have lasting implications for Starmer, the Labour Party, and the future of the country. The ruling from the Chief Justice has ignited a firestorm of criticism, revealing the full extent of the corruption scandal surrounding Keir Starmer and his Labour government. The public and political world were left stunned as the Chief Justice's verdict exposed a staggering £22 billion in taxpayer money that had gone missing under Starmer's leadership. Once seen as a rising star in British politics, Starmer now finds himself at the centre of a scandal of unimaginable proportions, one that has shaken the very foundations of the government. The scale of the financial misconduct is so vast that it threatens to not only derail Starmer's leadership but also to unravel the Labour Party's long-standing position in British politics. The missing £22 billion, originally earmarked for public services, infrastructure and social programmes, has instead been misappropriated into questionable contracts, backdoor deals, and potentially fraudulent operations. This revelation has sent shockwaves through the country, with many questioning how such an immense amount of public funds could have been squandered under the watch of the Prime Minister. The scale of the corruption is further compounded by the fact that the money was intended for vital public services that directly impact the lives of everyday citizens. As inflation continues to eat away at people's wages, the idea that such a sum of money could disappear is not only alarming but also enraging. The Chief Justice's ruling has stripped away the veneer of competence and integrity that Starmer's government had once projected. What was once seen as a case of political mismanagement has now been revealed as a deliberate, systemic failure that has left the British public reeling. The Labour Party, which had long positioned itself as the champion of the working class, is now facing a crisis of credibility. Starmer's attempts to deflect blame and downplay the severity of the situation have only exacerbated the public's disillusionment. His leadership is being called into question, with many now demanding answers. The government's failure to be transparent and accountable has resulted in an erosion of public trust, and the Labour Party's credibility is rapidly crumbling. In the wake of the ruling, protests have erupted across major cities, with thousands of citizens voicing their anger and demanding that Starmer step down immediately. The public's frustration is palpable, with many feeling betrayed by the very government that was supposed to represent their interests. As more details emerge, the full scope of the corruption scandal becomes clearer, and Starmer's position grows increasingly precarious. The ruling from the Chief Justice has not only exposed the financial misconduct, but also cast a long shadow over the future of the Labour Party. With public support rapidly dwindling, it is unclear whether the Labour Party will ever recover from this catastrophic failure of leadership. The ruling from the Chief Justice has sent shockwaves throughout the entire British political establishment, revealing the staggering extent of corruption within Keir Starmer's government. The case, which started as whispers of financial mismanagement, has now erupted into a full-blown crisis that threatens not only Starmer's leadership, but also the future of the Labour Party itself. What was initially thought to be a political misstep has now been exposed as a deliberate and systemic failure of governance, one that has put the entire country at risk. The £22 billion that has gone missing is not just a figure on a balance sheet. It represents the potential destruction of public trust in the government. This money was meant for public services, infrastructure, and the welfare of British citizens. Instead, it has vanished into a void of questionable deals and shady financial transactions. The implications of this ruling are massive, as it confirms that Starmer's government was not simply negligent, but engaged in a scheme of financial misconduct that betrayed the very people it was meant to serve. The ruling has placed the blame squarely on Starmer's shoulders, and the fallout has been nothing short of catastrophic. The loss of such a colossal sum of taxpayer money is more than a financial issue. It is a breach of public trust that goes to the very core of British democracy. For months, Starmer and his team have attempted to downplay the significance of the accusations, dismissing them as nothing more than politically motivated attacks. However, the Chief Justice's ruling has shattered that narrative, leaving the Labour Party scrambling to salvage what is left of its credibility. The ruling has also implicated senior figures within Labour, including Deputy Leader Angela Rayner, further deepening the crisis. Her involvement in the cover-up of these financial irregularities has cast doubt on her ability to continue in her leadership role. The ruling has made it clear that the Labour Party, once a champion of working-class values, has become mired in a scandal that threatens its very survival. As public anger grows, so too does the pressure on Starmer to step down. Protests are erupting across the country, with citizens demanding accountability from the government. Labour MPs, many of whom had supported Starmer in the past, are now publicly distancing themselves from his leadership, sensing that their association with the scandal could be their political death sentence. The public's trust in Labour is rapidly eroding, and Starmer's once strong grip on power is slipping away. The ruling has left the British public grappling with the reality that the government they elected has betrayed them on a scale that few could have ever imagined. The crisis is deepening with every passing day, and it remains unclear whether Labour can ever recover from this devastating blow. The fallout from the Chief Justice's decision is only just beginning, and the future of the Labour Party hangs in the balance. The situation surrounding Keir Starmer's leadership has escalated dramatically, with public disillusionment now at an all-time high. The aftermath of the Chief Justice's ruling has left the Labour Party in a state of disarray, as the scandal over missing £22 billion has reverberated throughout the political landscape. The impact of this revelation is not confined to just one individual or party. It has shaken the very foundation of British governance. For many, this scandal represents the betrayal of not only taxpayer money, but also the core values that Labour once stood for. The outrage among the public has been palpable, with protests and calls for Starmer's resignation filling the streets. It is clear that his credibility has been irreparably damaged, and the Labour Party's future is now in question. What was once considered a steady and reliable party is now facing a crisis of trust that could very well lead to its downfall. As the scandal continues to unfold, Starmer's refusal to acknowledge the severity of the situation is only fueling the growing anger of the British public. While his leadership once seemed unshakable, the revelations surrounding this financial debacle have proven to be a tipping point. The loss of £22 billion is not a minor mistake. It is a colossal failure that has placed the UK economy in jeopardy. The scale of the corruption has left many questioning how it could have been allowed to happen under Starmer's watch. What's worse is the sense that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of mismanagement and questionable decisions within the Labour leadership. As more details continue to emerge, It becomes increasingly apparent that this crisis goes far beyond just a few bad decisions. It's a systemic failure that has left the country exposed to the whims of those in power. What was once a government that promised to serve the people now stands accused of betraying them. The latest revelations point to the fact that Labour's financial mismanagement was not a simple mistake, but a deliberate attempt to funnel public money into questionable projects and contracts. These actions have deeply damaged the party's reputation, and it seems that the damage may be too great to repair. As the calls for Starmer to step down intensify, his attempts to cling to power seem more desperate and futile with each passing day. The Chief Justice's ruling has been a critical moment in this saga, confirming what many had suspected, that Starmer's government was not only financially reckless, but also morally bankrupt. The public's patience has worn thin, and it is becoming increasingly clear that the Labour Party must make drastic changes if it hopes to regain the trust of the British people. However, with internal divisions mounting and public outcry growing louder, it seems that the road to recovery for Labour will be a long and uncertain one. The political crisis surrounding Keir Starmer has now reached a boiling point, with his leadership under siege and the Labour Party's credibility in tatters. The Chief Justice's ruling, which exposed the scale of financial mismanagement and corruption within Starmer's government, has sparked a tidal wave of public outrage. As more details of the scandal come to light, it has become painfully clear that the Labour Party's leadership has failed not only in managing public funds, but also in maintaining the trust of the British people. The $22 billion sterling that has mysteriously disappeared is not just a financial blunder, it represents a profound betrayal of the electorate. For months, the Labour Party tried to downplay the severity of the situation, dismissing accusations as politically motivated. However, the Chief Justice's verdict has shattered that narrative and left Starmer with few avenues of escape. The public's frustration is palpable, with calls for his resignation echoing across the country. What was once a unified party now faces division from within. Senior Labour members are resigning or distancing themselves from Starmer, unwilling to be tainted by the scandal that continues to unfold. This collapse from within is a clear sign that Labour's internal confidence is unravelling just as quickly as its external support. Starmer's refusal to acknowledge the depth of the crisis is only making matters worse. His optimism about economic recovery, while laudable in theory, rings hollow in the face of the overwhelming evidence of financial mismanagement. The promises of rising wages and economic growth, which once offered hope to working-class families, are now seen as empty rhetoric. While Starmer and his allies continue to argue that the UK economy is on the mend, the reality for millions of households tells a very different story. Rising inflation, stagnant wages, and skyrocketing living costs have left working families struggling to make ends meet. The Labour Party, which once prided itself on being the voice of the working class, is now seen as part of the problem rather than the solution. With each passing day, it becomes more apparent that Starmer's leadership is failing to meet the needs of the people. The once powerful Labour Party is now mired in scandal, unable to offer the clear solutions that the public desperately needs. The situation has deteriorated so much that even the monarchy, typically reserved from political matters, is now being drawn into the conversation. King Charles, reportedly furious about the financial misconduct, is said to be considering taking unprecedented steps to address the situation. While the monarchy's involvement in politics is traditionally limited, sources suggest that the king may use his influence to urge Starmer to step down. The growing public discontent, combined with the pressure from within his own party, is pushing Starmer closer to the edge. It remains to be seen whether he will cling to power or face the inevitable resignation that seems increasingly unavoidable. One thing is certain: the political landscape of the UK has been irrevocably changed by this scandal, and the Labour Party's future remains uncertain. The public's trust has been shattered, and it will take far more than empty promises to rebuild it. The once unshakable power of the Labour leadership now hangs by a thread, and only time will tell if Starmer can weather the storm, or if his leadership will become yet another casualty of this devastating scandal. The situation surrounding Keir Starmer's leadership continues to spiral, with the Labour Party facing an unprecedented crisis. As the scandal deepens, public confidence in Starmer and his government is quickly evaporating. The Chief Justice's ruling has served as a damning indictment of the Labour Party's handling of public funds, and with each new revelation the pressure on Starmer grows. The £22 billion sterling that has gone missing, coupled with widespread allegations of financial misconduct, has left many questioning the integrity of the entire government. Starmer's response to the ruling has been one of denial and deflection, further alienating those who once saw him as a viable leader. His insistence that things are improving, despite mounting evidence to the contrary, has only intensified public disillusionment. The reality is that millions of Britons are struggling with rising costs, stagnant wages and soaring inflation, issues that Starmer's leadership seems unable or unwilling to address. In the face of this, Labour MPs are abandoning ship, unwilling to be dragged down by the scandal that has consumed their party. Senior party members are resigning, distancing themselves from a leader they once supported. The disarray within Labour is becoming increasingly evident, and the prospect of a leadership change seems inevitable. However, the question remains: who will step in to repair the damage caused by Starmer's failed leadership? With the monarchy now reportedly involved in the situation, the political crisis could soon reach new heights. The stakes have never been higher, and Labour's future now hinges on whether it can restore public trust. See you again.